Good morning and welcome to another World Cup wrap-up here on the Top Order podcast. We got what we were asking for, a close match, an insta-classic in the World Cup as South Africa took on Pakistan overnight. The weather is frightful here in Auckland, but the cricket was delightful. All that, more analogies, comparisons to 90s video games, heaps more coming up on the Top Order podcast after I figure out how to push some buttons.
Good.
Yes, good morning, Raj. Not my best intro, but we'll struggle on this morning, this Saturday morning here in Auckland. It's about 3 degrees in my study in Auckland, so I've got the cable knit sweater on in preparation for rolling that out cricket today. Look, it was another case of cricket impersonating early 90s video games overnight as the World Cup caught fire NBA Jam style. Critics have been lamenting the lack of close games in this 50-over World Cup, blaming the format, blaming the lack of cricket played in 50-over format. But we got a classic, South Africa-Pakistan overnight, going right down to the wire.
Yep, we did. Speaking of classic, for those of you tuning in on YouTube, you'll be able to see Baldy's knit akin to Grandma from Red Riding Hood, looking sharp, mate. It was an incredible game of cricket that just ebbed and flowed like one of those great test matches, if you will. It really was in the balance from ball one to the final ball, where South Africa actually showed some good bottle at the end to win that game in a really tense situation. I have some interesting turning points that I wanted to sort of talk about rather than going through the scorecard. I think that Pakistan did a great job early on. South Africa did a great job to dismiss Rizwan and Baba, who are the sort of mainstays in that Pakistan batting lineup that you want to get sent back to the pavilion. And when Baba was sent back at 141 for 5, that could have gone anywhere. You know, we've seen Pakistan, fall apart at times with the bat. They could have been all out for 200, but instead we had a great partnership from Shakil and Shadab to really push that score up over 200. And South Africa, for their part, did a really good job to keep Pakistan down to 270 rather than 290 plus. Pakistan not batting out their overs. How important do you think that is for the end result in this game?
Oh, hugely impactful. I mean, if you have a look at, as you said, that partnership that was finally broken by Shamsi, Pakistan in the 39th or the 40th over were 225 for 5 and staring down the barrel of, could they get somewhere close to 300? As it was, they then lost 45 for 5, and South Africa did a fantastic job in the last 10 overs of taking regular wickets and piling on that pressure. And as you say, Pakistan didn't bat out their overs, which was hugely impactful in terms of the outcome of this game. And I think they'll look back on it and have a look at how many starts they got. And if you do look at the scorecard, there's lots of starts in that top 7, but only 2 guys got to 50 and none of them got past 60, which is the point of difference in those two teams. If you have a look at South Africa's innings, one guy stood tall, got a big score, and the rest of the team batted around him and got South Africa home.
You mentioned Shamsi there. Do you wanna talk a little bit more about him and give him the props he deserves?
I think we need to, because as this tournament rolls on, we've seen Adam Zampa hit some form and he's started to take a lot of wickets. He's become the leading wicket taker in the last couple of days. Now we're starting to see the spinners come to the fore a little bit more. We're starting to see wrist spin become more important in the World Cup. So for South Africa, being able to have Maharaj and Shamsi play together at the expense of Rabada in this particular case, and for Shamsi to come in and take 4 important wickets. I looked at his highlights this morning as I got up. He bowled really, really well. He got zip off the wicket. He was able to bowl the wrong and put the ball across the right-hander really, really well. And he was able to extract, turn and bounce. That partnership was broken by a good catch where the ball bounced and took the outside edge off a back foot cut shot. So plenty to like from Tabraiz Shamsi, and another string to an impressive-looking bow for South Africa going forward.
So we've talked a little bit about scores and pitches during the sort of whole World Cup. Do you think that this is sort of the schematic going forward? I mean, so far we've seen big hundreds, by the top of the orders, top of the innings, hundreds. Is this the schematic going forward? It's perhaps one big score and everyone batting around them to get around 300, and 300 is a possible winning score going forward.
I hope so, because I think that provides the most entertaining cricket for 50-over World Cups. We had a look at the 2019 tournament We thought that was going to be the tournament of 400 scores, and it wasn't. 250 to 270 was a gettable score, and it proved to be a winning score in a lot of occasions. So I hope that India can continue to produce good one-day cricket wickets, and I thought this was a good one-day cricket wicket. As you say, there was a little bit in it for everybody. 270 to 300, I think, is a great par score in an ODI because it means both sides are in the game the whole way through. And if you can bat well, you get one guy who stays in, as you say, and then you get guys batting around him, and you get a close finish at the end, which I think a lot of the World Cup critics have been lamenting the lack of close finishes in this World Cup. And we got one, and we got an Insta Classic overnight.
We did. And moving on to South Africa's innings, again, very similar sort of schematic that we've looked at there. There's heaps of bit part scores there, plenty of 20s there, but one that stands out above the rest, Aiden Markram. What did you make of the South African chase and the bowling effort to almost defend that 270 score?
Yeah, Pakistan are really missing Naseem Shah at the top of that bowling lineup, aren't they? They're missing a guy who can swing the ball early doors and make life uncomfortable for batters at both ends. We haven't quite seen the best of Shaheen Shah Afridi in this World Cup, but he has been outstanding for them. He's just missing a sparring partner who can swing the ball at the other end. As it was, we've seen plenty of Harris Ralph in the power play. He's not quite as adept at swinging the ball, but he does bowl great wheels, and he took a fantastic catch overnight as well off his own bowling. The thing to like here for South Africa and for South African fans is they got themselves into a close contest. They got themselves into a chase where they were 8 down, 9 down, and needed to show some real steel, some real metal. Use the analogy what you like, but they were able to get the job done. And in years gone past, in tournaments gone past, we might have seen a different result from South Africa. So for their fans, I think this shows, as we thought it might, that the wheat is starting to get separated from the chaff here in this World Cup, and South Africa have really stood tall in this game to show us that they have got a bit of steel, a bit of metal when the going gets tough for them. And that's been a real question mark hanging over them, even in this tournament.
Yes, no, definitely. I mean, I'll talk about that shortly, just around sort of the Taipei personalities they've got. But Aiden Markram, for me, was the player of the match. I think he batted well in partnerships to put South Africa in that position to win the game. His partnership, particularly with David Miller of around 70, I think it was crucial. And also, you've got to give kudos to the likes of David Miller, who had the situational awareness to bat in a partnership, bat time in a partnership, and not try and send everything out of the stadium. It was crucial for them getting over the line there. But just, you mentioned there on, past performances in South Africa. Previously, they've had the likes of a Hashim Amla or A.B. de Villiers, someone who was an outstanding performer who they could bat around. Then sort of that made way for the likes of Faf, the big sort of alpha Taipei personality standing at the top of the stairs with just a towel on. That sort of person who owns the dressing room. I think Aiden Markram can be a hybrid of those two kinds of players, and I think we're starting to see it. And it's interesting. I think that can flow on to all their cricket, white and red ball. But in this particular case, I think he stood up and everyone batted around him, and I can see him becoming that kind of cult figure for South Africa going forward.
Absolutely. We're starting to see the emergence of some of these South African players on the international stage, not as talented cricketers, because we all know that Klaasen and Miller and Janssen and de Kock has been a tremendous performer for a long time. Rassie van der Dussen, we know the talent that they have. But now what we're starting to see is some real application. We're starting to see some great teamwork from the South Africans. We're starting to see them work together to build something that's bigger than their individual talents combined. So that's the exciting thing for South African fans. And I think the cricket world needs to be on notice here that South Africa now at 5-1, top of the table, albeit India have another game in hand, are really stamping their authority on this tournament. And they're becoming really, for me, one of the teams to beat.
No, I completely agree. I think and this victory in particular is probably one that I'm more impressed by than their other victories in this World Cup. Stu will be listening to this intently, I'm sure, that I am turning a little bit to believe that South Africa do have a real shot to win this if they can get to that playoff stage, because they can win games like this. These close games where previously they may have faded, just like they did in the Netherlands game, where they faded a little bit, not batting first, chasing, having a little bit of pressure. But this was a good win. This was very impressive from South Africa. I can't fault them that they actually had some bottle to win this game at the end. It was very tense.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that stands their bowling in good stead going forward is they left Rabada out of this game and they can bring him back in if conditions suit him. So the flexibility they've got in their attack with Janssen, with Ngidi, with Kutsia, with Maharaj, Rabada, Tabre Shamsi now performed well in this game. They've now got a bowling attack for all conditions and a batting lineup that shows that they can temper their natural desire to hit every ball out of the park for six. So they're becoming a very, very dangerous side. And it's becoming a case now of how do you contain these Indian and South African batting lineups going forward because they just look so dangerous.
And finally, on Shadab Khan. So obviously he was substituted out of this match with a concussion. It's a bit of a shame for him because this was probably a pitch that would have suited him for the first time that he's played on in the World Cup. It was breaking up a lot in that second innings. He probably would have played a very, very dab hand, if you will, towards the end of this match. How big a loss could he be if the pitches are starting to break up and be a bit more friendly for Pakistan?
Yeah, huge out for Pakistan if he's not able to come back quickly for concussion, and we hope that he does, because as we say, the longer this World Cup goes on, I think the more and more we're likely to see quality wrist spin play a part in team success. So if Pakistan are going to go forward in this World Cup, certainly without Naseem Shah in the lineup, they're going to need more and more contributions from those other guys around Haris Rauf and Shaheen Shah Afridi to bring them home. So it could be a potentially very impactful out for Pakistan, and let's hope he recovers quite swiftly, because now for Pakistan sitting at 2-4, they started off well, 2 wins, and now they've lost 4 on the bounce, which means that they're in the chasing pack alongside Bangladesh, England, the Netherlands, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, all trying to chase down that 4th spot, because I think at the moment, touch wood, South Africa, India, New Zealand look like they're in good positions. Let's not count our chickens yet, New Zealand fans, but they're looking good for the semi-finals. Australia are on the cusp, and all of those sides are chasing with either 3 or 4 losses already in the tournament. So Pakistan have fallen back to the pack a little in this game, and they're going to need everybody to be firing, as well as some vintage Babar Azam and Rizwan performances to get them. What do we think? 5 wins, 6 wins, Raj, is probably going to get them to that 4th spot?
I think that 6 wins is probably going to get them to that 4th spot. But depending on the results that we've seen, like all of a sudden Sri Lanka is in 5th spot out of nowhere on the table. It really is a crazy table there, and every win and every loss actually has a massive impact on the table. Speaking about that, I would like to move on to the New Zealand-Australia game that is going to be on tonight, unless there's anything else you wanted to add on the table or the Pakistan game?
No, I mean, the only thing I'd probably add is Pakistan and England have already lost 4 games. So the best they can do now is 5-4. So I think they're going to have to hope that losses go their way. The best thing for England and Pakistan is that New Zealand beat Australia tonight, drop Australia to 3 losses, and then England have to beat Australia in their run home for them to be any chance. So it's going to be interesting to see how that table plays out. But the best that Pakistan and England can hope for is to finish 5-4 and hope other results go their way. Speaking of which, a good opportunity for England and Pakistan is this Australia-New Zealand clash tonight.
Yes. What are you seeing as the big sort of points for that game? I'm looking at selection for Australia, talking about Travis Head and Marcus Stoinis playing in this game tonight. What do you see as a big sort of team news update for Australia? Because I think that their balance going into this is going to be interesting.
It certainly is. If Travis Head comes in, you would think he'd come in for Marnus Labuschagne, and then it's the merry-go-round of the Cameron Green, Marcus Stoinis swap in, swap out situation that may continue to revolve as we go forward. I think we're getting a little bit more out of Marcus Stoinis with the ball at the moment. Unfortunately, Cameron Green's hit a bit of a patch in terms of his form, where he's not at the top of his game, and he's not delivering for Australia in that lower order. So I think maybe Marcus Stoinis, who has form against New Zealand, he burst onto the scene with that tremendous 100 that we saw at Eden Park all those years ago. So he's got some form against New Zealand, albeit not recent. I think Australia will benefit from having Travis Head in the lineup. He gives them an extra bowling option, particularly around spin if we want to introduce a third spinner. But I think everything revolves around who bats at 3 and 4 for Australia. So if that's Smith and Mitchell Marsh, or Smith and Marnus, or Marnus and Smith, whichever combination we want to throw at it, those guys have to put on a big score for Australia to be able to be explosive and set a target for New Zealand that they'll find difficult to chase. I think if Australia set 260, 270, depending on what the par score for that wicket looks like, I think New Zealand will feel quite comfortable chasing. They've got some tremendous batting at their disposal. And I think they've got the bowling attack that can really trouble the Australians. Mitchell Santner has been excellent. Australia struggle against spin at times. So it's going to be a terrific matchup. How do you see the keys to victory for New Zealand, Raj?
Yeah, look, I am actually a little bit nervous going into this game, because I feel like this game, the result from this, or maybe not the result, but the manner in which the loss or victory is scored by New Zealand will be defining on a little, have a defining sort of element for the rest of their tournament. We know that we always struggle coming up against Australia, and I think that's more of a mental challenge. You know, back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, Australia were beating people in the warm-ups. You know, you'd turn up and you'd look across and see who you're playing. And I think New Zealand still has an element of that, where we look across and we're like, okay, those are pretty big names. That's the older brother there. You know, you look at Mitchell Starc, Glenn Maxwell, David Warner, Steve Smith. These are massive, massive names in the cricketing world. Sometimes we have that little bit of a imposter syndrome, but I don't think that's something that is disappearing very, very quickly. But yeah, I think this is an important match for New Zealand, and it is likely to have a defining sort of impact on the rest of their tournament, because they've got 4 games left. They've got Australia, South Africa, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and I think New Zealand have to win 2 of those 4 to secure their spot, and it would be great if we could get the first one here against Australia. From a team news perspective, Kane's still out with the knee complaint, with the hand complaint. The knee is fine, and I think we'll go in with an unchanged lineup. This pitch here, is it at Dharamsala? I think it is. Yes, has so far been offering a lot to the pace bowlers. So I think that actually suits us a little bit, but it also suits the Australians as well. So it'll be an interesting game for sure.
Huge game. And the only thing I would say about that Dharamsala surface is that the outfield is a little bit sandy. So let's hope that both sides get through without, again, touch wood, without any injuries or anything like that in the outfield. It promises to be a very exciting game. Raj, do you have any other talking points that you wanted to cover before we wrap up the pod? I think tonight's game is going to be super exciting, and I'm going to stay up late for a change and see if I can watch the whole thing.
No, final comment just on that Pakistan-South Africa game. What a good time to have an absolute nail biter, and hopefully we can have some more throughout the tournament.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And on that note, it's probably a good time to wrap up this episode of the Daily Wrap here at the Cricket World Cup 2023 50 over format, 4 men. And I do like to extend the names of these ICC tournaments for as long as I can. So thank you for bearing with Raj and I this morning as we recap this Insta Classic between South Africa and Pakistan and look ahead to tonight's game between Australia and New Zealand. I hope you're enjoying the World Cup coverage here on the Top Order podcast and the cricket as well. From Raj and I here in our Auckland studio, it is good morning. God bless, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you tomorrow morning to wrap up Australia, New Zealand here on the Top Order podcast.